Hello, I'm reporter Jay Hong from Tea Times. Today we're joined by director Deok Jong Kim, an HR expert and a master of smart work. Welcome.
Thanks for having me.
Last time you were on the show, you introduced several AI tools useful for office workers. It wasn't just a simple tool introduction, you presented new approaches that could innovate our existing workflows, and the response was phenomenal. The view count was also very high.
Oh, thank you.
Recently, the number of people around me who want to automate or reduce their existing tasks using AI has significantly increased. However, as we talk more, they say it takes a lot of time to study, find the right tools or methods, and test them out. Some even lament, I started this to reduce my workload, but it feels like I'm doing more work instead. Director, how much time do you invest in this daily, and how do you wisely manage this process?
I think I need to answer this in parts. First, to use the right AI tool for your job, you must thoroughly understand and analyze your work. Furthermore, you need to consider the preceding tasks, the preliminary work that might be handled by other teams or individuals. The results of this preliminary work come to me, I perform my tasks, and the outcome of my work in turn affects other people or teams. You need this broad perspective of the entire workflow to clearly see how to effectively use AI. If you simply think about replacing my job with AI, it's impossible unless some magic happens. There is no single AI in the world that can substitute for complex tasks like conducting market research, creating a sales plan, and handling R&D all at once. However, if you know how to break down tasks like R&D or market research into smaller pieces, and if you can define the nature of each of those modules, then it becomes easy to decide which technology to apply. Imagine structuring your work like a Go board. First, you define the vertical axis. The vertical axis represents chunks of work. For example, as the director of labs, one of my tasks is to analyze the latest AI technology trends and market status. Another axis involves meeting with clients to identify and organize their issues. And since I have to create AI products, I also handle the production process, from planning to development and testing. These are the pillars that constitute my work, the vertical axis. But work also has a horizontal axis that intersects with the vertical one. The horizontal axis is broadly divided into three categories. The top level is the direct domain, where I give instructions, set strategies, and plan. In the middle is the managed domain for control and administration, and at the bottom is the execute domain. So we create a matrix with the vertical axis, chunks of work, and the horizontal axis, how it's done, to classify whether a task is in the planning, managing, or execution phase. You apply AI to the individual components formed where the horizontal and vertical axes meet. If you try to apply AI to a vague, monolithic block of work without this breakdown, as I said before, you'd need magic. There is no single tool that automates the entire process, planning, research, generating results, and announcing them. Therefore, if we structure these business components like a Go board and clearly understand the attributes of each component, the scope of which AI to apply becomes much narrower and clearer. Let's take this one step further. Let's assume I've designated a specific component where the horizontal and vertical axes meet. To determine if this component can be converted into an AI task, we must be able to answer the question, what can AI do? Try discussing this with your colleagues. What can AI do? At first, some might say it can do everything. A more critical view might be, it can do a lot, but it often hallucinates, so I have to double-check everything. From now on, let's approach AI by personifying it. When we hire someone, we post a job description, JD, on a recruitment site. That JD specifies the skill requirements needed for the role. So, if we were to write down the skill requirements for the generative AI we know today, what would they be? Generally, generative AI is known to have about 12 key skills. This includes things we are familiar with like writing, summarization, brainstorming, coding, and translation. When we analyze what AI excels at, we can classify its abilities into about 12 skill domains. So now we know two things. First, we've broken down our work into specific components using a horizontal and vertical axis. Second, we've learned that AI is not an all-powerful entity but a collection of technologies with 12 core skills. Now let's map these two together. It becomes possible to plan which of the 12 AI skills to apply to the work component you want to improve. Some tasks might only require translation. Other tasks might need to synthesize user input to generate ideas, ideation, or write text, writing. There are also tasks for creating images or blueprints, and in some cases AI can act as an assistant or a coach, providing consultation. Thus, the question of how to apply AI to my work goes beyond just finding a good tool on the market. It starts with deconstructing your work and mapping the most appropriate AI skills to those broken down components. This is the most critical factor in successfully adopting AI in your workflow.
So the vertical axis you mentioned earlier, does that divide the types of work I do, the tasks I handle?
We usually call it a competency group, and yes, thinking of it as your chunks of work is accurate.
And the horizontal axis signifies how I do that work?
Yes, we also refer to it as accountability. To use an analogy, the top direct level is like FIFA. The middle manage level is like the coaches and referees, and the bottom execute level is the players. This might make it easier to understand.
In that case, this horizontal axis would be similar for most office workers, wouldn't it?
It depends on your job level. You typically move up from the bottom execution level.
So on that horizontal axis, I could be someone who primarily executes, or a middle manager, or a top-level director. I'd fall into one of those categories.
In reality, when you create the matrix, you'll often find your role is complexly intertwined across two or more areas. For example, let's say I'm a recruitment manager.
Planning tasks such as analyzing recent hiring trends or strategizing how to use AI in recruitment are not done by my superior but by me, acting as a planner. At the same time, scheduling interviews for applicants and managing the interview process are execution tasks. By creating this matrix with a vertical and horizontal axis, you can easily see which areas of your job matrix you are most active in.
So, to summarize, you define your work components using a vertical and horizontal axis, and then you match the intersection point with which of the 12 AI skills could handle that task.
That's right.
All right, so taking a look at this right now, as you all consider the chunks of work you're handling and how you're going about them, mapping it out, it'd be great if someone could put together a guide on what tools these mappings could translate into later on.
In my personal experience, I've even seen cases where people with the same job gathered, defined their work on this matrix, and then built an app themselves using low-code tools to automate a specific task. The truth is, even though I introduced them to many great tools, their work was very unique. They ran into limitations like, this tool is good but not quite right, or that tool is great, but it violates our company's security policy. So, in that workshop, we concluded, to make this area more efficient, let's just build it ourselves. They decided to learn low-code development and create a simple app that could be used just within their team or organization. Many people are taking this approach.
So have you created a matrix for your own work?
Of course, and I'm constantly conducting workshops and experiments with clients. As a former consultant, I'm familiar with past innovation methodologies. Long ago, there was Six Sigma. The next phase was process innovation, PI, and more recently, the agile methodology has been in the spotlight. But when you think about it, these past innovation methodologies had a hard time producing tangible outputs. The results of process innovation were often stored like a Bible in PowerPoint slides, Excel sheets, or separate management systems. But today, we live in a world where these innovation methodologies can be immediately realized and turned into usable tools. That's why I'm using this framework to quickly implement changes and transform the way we work. Naturally, we do this within our labs, and for the clients who thankfully contacted us after the Tea Times show, rather than just introducing good AI, we approach them by suggesting, let's first clearly analyze your work and map the appropriate AI skills.
In that case, when you did the mapping for yourself, roughly how many work components did you find that could be replaced by AI?
At this point, it's harder to find things that can't be replaced by AI.
As I mentioned, AI has 12 skills. Almost every work component can be mapped to one or two of them. We consider the AI impact to be significant when a single component maps to at least 5 or more AI skills. In such cases, we propose prioritizing that task for AI transformation.
So within one work component, there are various roles I have to play, like writing or translation, and you're saying I can identify specific parts that can be replaced by AI, not the entire component, but specific roles within it can be handled by AI, and there's always at least one such match. And if there are multiple such replaceable roles, I can assume that AI can take over a larger portion of my original work.
Yes, that's correct. To help individuals or teams easily assess the potential and impact of AI transformation for a given work component, our lab has created a self-diagnostic tool called the AI Impact Assessment. It's a simple checklist anyone can use. You think of a task and go through questions like, is it repetitive? Is the data clear? Is accountability well defined? If the AI makes a mistake, can I correct it? By following this, you can easily determine, this task could greatly benefit from AI. Now, let's talk about some real-world scenarios. You know, a lot of companies out there are taking different approaches. Some are pretty open, giving their employees access to stuff like ChatGPT and other AI platforms. Then you've got companies that are being a bit more cautious, maybe taking a closer look at security or running some checks before they jump in. The most ideal environment is running AI inside your own computer or company server without an internet connection. There are tools that allow you to install AI directly on your PC and use it like a personal dedicated chatbot, which I'd like to introduce. Of course, even downloading such a tool may require approval from your security team. However, since it's an LLM that runs 100% locally, I believe if you discuss it with them, there's a high chance it will be approved without major issues. First, as you can see on the screen, you'll see a website called, quote, misty.app. To put it simply, think of it as downloading a chat program. Once installed, you can converse with it just like with ChatGPT. The crucial point is that it operates entirely within my computer without connecting to the internet. How is that possible? Among the various language models available today, some can be downloaded for free. Let me ask you, Reporter Hong, as of today, approximately how many large language models, LLMs, do you think are available on Hugging Face?
I remember looking it up before, and I think it was over several thousand.
Shall we check together?
You mean the large language models?
That's correct.
Not just as a service.
Here is the models menu. If we go in, as of today, there are 1.7 million models.
Wow, that many.
This includes models you may know from Kakao, Naver, and Upstage. When developers around the world create a language model, they often first upload it to Hugging Face for testing and evaluation. There's a reason I brought up this site. There are surprisingly many high-quality language models that you can download for free and use without restriction. A prime example is Gemma, created by Google. This language model is only 815 MB, less than 1 GB. This means it can run smoothly on most standard laptops without any issues. Of course, similar small language models have existed before, like Qwen, Mistral, and DeepSeek. However, they were too large to run on my personal computer. The performance of a large language model depends on the number of GPUs in your laptop. This company-issued Office laptop doesn't have a powerful GPU. In such cases, downloading and using a model like Gemma is an excellent choice. You might think, if the model size is small, won't the response quality be inferior to large models that are hundreds of gigabytes or even terabytes? All I can say is you have to try it for yourself. It's incredibly well made and contains condensed knowledge focused on essential conversational content.
I have a question here. Until early last year, I remember that even when smaller models with a few 100 million parameters appeared, the consensus was performance has improved, but hallucinations are still frequent. Has the game changed significantly since then?
It has changed a lot. First, since Gemma was made by Google, its multilingual support is excellent. Unless you insist on using only Korean-made models, it's highly recommended to try this multilingual model that incorporates Google's search know-how. Its accuracy has also reached a very high level. Now, if you download and install this app, Misty, it will complete the installation without requiring any login. Once installed, you'll see the screen that's currently displayed. As soon as it's installed, it downloads the 1 billion parameter Gemma model, the 815 MB language model, to your local PC. You don't need to touch anything else. When you install Misty, the language model is also installed automatically, so you just have to watch the process. First, let's test how well it responds. I asked hello in Korean, and it answered correctly. Let's try a question like, why is the sky blue? Now please take a look at the response speed. This is the speed on a standard Office laptop. It's not connected to any server. It's running 100% on my laptop. As you can see, it provides a pretty good scientifically based answer. You might think, this kind of scientific knowledge isn't relevant to my work. So, let's ask a business-related question like, what are successful HR innovation strategies in the AI era? See, it's thinking a bit longer than before, right? But because all this information is condensed into a language model that's less than 1 GB, it generates a remarkably high-quality answer. If I showed you this text and claimed it was from ChatGPT, you'd likely nod in agreement. The same would be true if I said it was from Gemma. You can work with this chatbot open on the side of your screen, looking up unfamiliar terms or getting new strategic ideas. It offers various functionalities. While the AI is generating a response, let's briefly look at the buttons at the bottom. First, you can attach files.
Oh, so it can analyze attached files and do all that.
Yes, you can upload a PDF file to discuss its content or upload an Excel file and ask for analysis. Second, there's a feature to create your own knowledge base. You can upload a single file for Qwen, but the knowledge base allows you to, for instance, upload your entire work manual and have conversations based on it. At this point, you might think, isn't uploading files risky? But I'll say it again, it operates 100% locally. Therefore, none of that information is sent over the internet. Third is quick prompts. When you use ChatGPT, you assign it a persona and define its character for responses, right? Here you can preset prompts like, you must refer to me as director, or I work in this field, so take that into account in your answers. Fourth is the internet search function, which is off by default. The moment you turn this on, the meaning of a local environment can be diluted. However, depending on your company's security policy, simple internet searches might be permissible. If you turn this on and ask a question, it will generate an answer by combining information from the internet with the local language model. Of course, this feature isn't as flashy as Perplexity AI or other advanced tools, but it's perfectly capable of basic internet searches like, what is the minimum wage in 2025? Lastly, we just tested the Gemma model. If you want to try other downloadable local models, as you can see, you can download and run various models like Qwen, Gemma, DeepSeek, Llama, and more. You'll notice a gauge here. After checking my laptop's performance, I found it's enough to run Llama 3.2, but it seems a little insufficient for running something like QWQ. Because of this, it's giving me recommendations for which language models are usable on my laptop. For example, you can download and use Llama, an open source model from Meta. You can also download and use the slightly larger 4.7 GB model from DeepSeek, which has an enhanced reasoning engine. You can leverage various local language models like this. If your company allows API access to external services like OpenAI or Gemini, you can go to the Remote Model Providers menu, enter your API key, and use those models through the same chat interface. To sum up, you can start with a small downloaded local language model and then expand by either downloading various other local LLMs or connecting to external APIs. Both are possible.
When internet search is on, our biggest fear, and the reason companies block it for security, is that our queries or uploaded files might be sent to an external server like OpenAI's. So in this state, just turning on search is unrelated to our uploaded files being transmitted externally. Is that correct?
Yes, that's correct.
It's literally a combination of two functions, internet surfing and generative AI. The search and the AI chat are separate processes. It first searches the internet, brings all the results back locally, and then uses that data to generate a response. So, the concept of your information being sent out doesn't apply.
Although, of course, we can't know 100% what the developers are doing behind the scenes.
I've run several tests. I actually monitored the network traffic to see if any data was being sent out, and as expected, there was none. The easiest test was to disconnect from the internet and try it. If you don't use the internet connection feature, all other functions like file uploads and prompt writing work perfectly offline.
For example, when you're on a plane or in a situation without internet, you usually can't use AI at all. This seems like something worth having installed on your PC.
That's right. It feels like on-device AI is truly upon us. A capacity of under 1 GB is not a significant burden even for a smartphone. If the Misty app becomes available on mobile, we'll be able to easily use AI functions right from our phones.
Since you meet with so many companies and do a lot of consulting, I imagine that when you speak with them, their primary worry is security, right?
That's right. There seem to be various kinds of security barriers.
A client I recently met uses a VDI environment where they have to work inside a virtual desktop that appears when they run a specific app. This raises the question, should I use AI in the VDI environment or my local environment?
In reality, many people end up switching back and forth between these two environments to get their work done.
Just as public institutions have separate PCs for internal and external networks due to network separation, many companies also use VDI and local environments concurrently. That's why an app like Misty, which I just introduced, is a tool optimized for the local environment. So what if your computer is just a thin client and you want to use AI exclusively in a VDI environment? There's a very unique site for this that I'd like to introduce. Those of you interested in internet browsers might know of DuckDuckGo. And no, I'm not introducing it because it sounds like my name.
Oh, you may recall the DuckDuckGo browser. However, when asked what is the most secure web browser, the answer is unequivocally Safari.
But a web browser with even stronger security features is DuckDuckGo. It has been around for over a decade and has earned a good degree of trust and recognition. Today, I am not introducing the browser itself, but a site from the same company called DuckChat. When you visit the site, you'll see this screen. Let's click Try It Out. You'll probably think, huh? This looks just like ChatGPT. However, it's extremely secure because I didn't have to log in to use it, and it doesn't store my chat history on its servers.
If you want to save your history, you can turn on an option, but it saves the data only to your local computer. Let me ask a question you've probably tried on ChatGPT. Plan a 3-day, 2-night trip to Jeju Island for July.
When you give it a command such as plan a 3-day trip, it produces a high-quality output because it's built on the GPT-4o model. Now, if you look here, you can see the result. It asks if I want to save the conversation, reminding me again that if I do, it will be saved only on my computer and nothing will be stored on their web servers. Let me try something else. Create a performance feedback website using HTML.
I also had it do the coding.
As you can see, even in the free version, it handles coding perfectly. Of course, from a low-code perspective, this is just a skeleton that needs further work. But for creating a basic mock-up, DuckChat is more than sufficient. As you can see, it's well made. Now I'll close the site and access it again.
As you can see, this is saved locally on my machine. What saved locally means is that if I move to a different computer and visit the Duck AI site, this history won't be there. And the fact that there's no login means it can't identify who I am. Now, some of you might be asking, but can't you identify someone just from their IP address? The company DuckDuckGo has a foundational policy of not collecting any user information whatsoever. If you have any doubts about this, you can visit the DuckDuckGo site and easily see for yourself how committed they are to privacy. So, for those who find it difficult to install software locally, it's great to know that you can easily use GPT-4o for free, even in a VDI environment, through this method.
Is it limited to just GPT-4o?
And so, by default, it uses the GPT-4o model for your questions, but if you look up at the top left, you'll find that you can use a bunch of different open source language models as well. As we saw earlier on Hugging Face, there's an incredible variety of open language models available. Consequently, as you can see here, you can effectively utilize these open models like Llama, Claude, and Morphomini, as well as models invested in by companies like DuckDuckGo, which allow you to use a certain allotment of tokens.
Being able to use such a variety of models for free is truly innovative. There are many people around me who are hesitant to pay for these services. Also, many avoid AI due to security concerns, and this seems to solve both issues. From a corporate perspective, for companies that prioritize security, encouraging employees to use this service could be a better alternative than allowing unrestricted use of other tools.